What's going on, guys? We were supposed to do this in person last Wednesday, but due to the ice storm, small group was canceled, and you know, it was my turn to lead and teach on Unit 2. Read the material over and over, listened to it, and gained a lot from it. So, to start out, there was a chart on at the start and under preparation, and it listed the things our dads got right and the things our dads got wrong. You know, some of those things that stood out to me said things he got right was like he taught me to defend myself. He was a good provider. He was loving. He had a strong work ethic. He was funny, loyal. He stayed married to mom. And then humor and cooking, which I could relate to with my own father. And then some of the things that dads got wrong, he said he's not there for me. He was selfish. He got divorced. He cheated on mom. He didn't show love. And then angry, mean, and abusive. And so those things, that chart was pretty powerful to start it out. So chapter 3, it's a preview of the possible. And there was a quote at the beginning by Frederick Douglass. It said, "It's easier to build a strong children than to repair broken men." And that really spoke to me. If you think about it, as we're all trying to raise up our kids, it's a lot easier to put in the effort now than to, repair broken adults who are possibly in prison when we're having to do that or something. So this chapter really spoke out, especially with me having 4 sons. I don't know if any of you guys in there have 4 sons. That's kind of a big burden with this book, but I'm enjoying it. So it said, what do you want your son to know about God, about himself, and about life? I mean, right there is basically, we could call it done, because that's a lot just to think about. But, what do we want our sons to be when they grow up? When they turn 17 and walk out the house, or 18 and leave, or go to college, or, leave for boot camp, whatever it is, what do we want them to take with them? So these are really thought-provoking things. So, also what formational experiences do we want them to carry with them? It talked about 2 things. So questions, what were 2 or 3 of the top lessons we learned from our dad while growing up? And secondly, did you feel adequately prepared for the realities of life when you left home? Why or why not? So if you want to pause the video right now, you can, and you guys can talk about that. So 2 or 3 of the top lessons you learned from your dad while growing up. And then secondly, did you feel adequately prepared for the realities of life when you left home? Why or why not? And so give it a couple minutes if you guys want to talk about that, and then come back to me. I'm going to be sitting here holding my breath, okay? So, all right, anyways, it said, may the richest experiences be the ones you've curated and planned, not just random traumatic events that lead to brokenness. And the idea of, unplanned, all these words, really just random, traumatic, brokenness, those all are really like painful. They just provoke ideas of pain in me. So, the more effort we can put into it now, really the more powerful, we're going to be in instructing and raising up our kids. So, there were 2 exercises. I don't know if you guys did them, but one of them was preparing for that day. So it was a chart that we need to list out. What do I want my son or daughter, in some of your cases, to know? What do I want them to be, to do, and to experience? And so those are really powerful things to do, because it's going to basically give us a roadmap to proceed with. And then the second thing is an asset map. Let me just pronunciate that really well, an asset map. And that basically it lists tools, experiences, People, places, basically anything that we can put in our toolbox to help in this process of teaching our kids. So they're prepared when they go out into the world. And then the third exercise was an intentional father cohort, it said. But I think that while some of us have, maybe some varying ages, this book's recommending from 13 and on, I really think that we have a really strong group of guys that can support each other. I love it how a couple of you guys, you know my kids, you're comfortable with them, you don't mind speaking into them, even if I'm not there. That's like super powerful. And I think that's the idea of having this group of guys that can support each other. We're going through this together, and our kids know and enjoy each other. So, let's see here. And then let's see, we go on here. So, chapter 4 was honoring your father. And it started out with a quote by Cheryl Strayed, and it said basically, that's what fathers do. If they don't heal their wounds, they wound their children in the same places. And honestly, this is kind of heartbreaking for me because I can see patterns that my father possessed that I now often go to or am struggling with in my own kids, and that's kind of heartbreaking. So this whole book, it's almost like emotionally exhausting doing these exercises, and it is bringing up a lot of memories, pains, and good experiences and memories too. So dealing with brokenness of our past, allows us to understand the blessings we've inherited and to pass on that legacy of healing to our sons. So one of the questions was, did your dad struggle to impart the things you need? Because of the skills at passing down or raising us up that he never really were shown to him maybe. I know for my own father, there was some pretty bad things done to him. And through knowing my family, things that, were passed on through generations. And, I could see them carried on through him. And I really don't, in a way, I don't blame my father. I mean, that's how he was raised up. And, it's hard. So, anyways, one of the questions was, it said, repeated multiple times, it said, our fathers were boys once. Very few were guided into manhood. And I can definitely see this in my own dad's life. And when you put your dad, into the idea that he was a boy once, and it talks about, the stresses of when they become parents, for the first time, young parents, and raising up kids and all of that stuff. It's a lot of things can click. So, Richard Rohr, he said, if you don't transform our pain, we will assuredly transmit it to our sons. Basically, we'll pass that pain on to our very own sons. So it's so important that we do these things and get it right now. So it said, we truly become adults when we don't view our parents just through a chronological bias, but that we see them as adults for who they are. And this is how we begin to have a compassionate understanding for them. When we really look at our dad's lives, whether they're still alive or not, I think it allows us to give them a little more fair of a judgment and stuff. So 2 exercises for this unit. The first one was a tribute letter to your father. I don't know if any of you guys did this. I spent a pretty significant amount of time and still haven't finished the letter. I thought it would be really easy to do, but it's definitely not. My dad's been dead for about 7 years. And, there's still times where I want to pick up my phone and call him. Even though we didn't have the best relationship, but he's still my dad. So that tribute letter, I would definitely want to encourage you guys to do. And the second exercise was mountains and valleys. So it's listing basically the highest of high moments, the most beautiful beautiful memories and moments we had, and also the deepest, darkest, most gruesome, broken moments. And basically, you take your life in a timeline and you start to list out these different events and you connect them. And it shows your peaks and your valleys, your mountains and your valleys. So I also started that exercise. I didn't finish it, and I'm not going to lie. But it's hard. I mean, all of this stuff is really hard to do. So, the letter to my dad, basically, I'm thankful that I was already able to forgive my dad for our past right before he died, a year before he died, and I was able to speak that into him. And, what he did, the things he did, basically, also letting him know that I'm grateful for him. And that's basically what this letter asks us to do, is basically forgive our fathers, thank them for what they did right, and to bless them. And it's a blessing of gratitude, which is huge. So if you guys haven't done that, I would totally encourage you guys to give it a try. And then the last thing, towards the end, when we do that, it's basically when we do this chart, the things that I want my son to know, to be, to do, and to experience. That's going to be a really powerful tool. But back to the mountains and valleys, through these good high points and through these low points in our life, we can ask ourselves a couple things, like what happened. So we should name it. We should call it what it is. If we did something great, call it that. If we screwed up, let's be honest and say we screwed up. So how did that make you feel? We should embrace it. How did you respond to it? So that's owning it. How did that particular event shape you? So that would be that we can understand it, right? And then what did we learn from it? What things did we extract from that particular event on our mountains and valleys? Then the final thing is, how did we grow from this? So how are we going to use this to shape our sons? So, yeah, love you guys. I appreciate your time. Sorry if I'm long-winded here, but this chapter has been very powerful. This book has, and look forward to seeing you guys and talking about this. If y'all have any questions or want to talk at all, I'm going to be gone all this week in South Carolina, but you can text me and I'd be glad to talk. All right, later guys.